Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in the case of death? Welcome to USP, where I've spent the last 2+ decades of my life. You know, some people inquire about, do I know any incidents about staff being compromised as far as dudes pulling a female staff? Yeah, there's been a lot that goes on in the penitentiary that dudes had girls in there. And a story I'm going to share to you today was when we was in Lompoc. They had a dude named Skip. He's a redhead, freckled youngster out of Canada, and he lived in M Block. But it was after that we already moved out of M Block. You know, M Block was the high security unit when I first got into Lompoc. So I kept saying Lompoc, but it's Lompoc. Let me clarify that. But Lompoc. And M Block is where you had the 2-hour watch card. You had a pink card and a yellow card. The yellow cards was for dudes that had some type of sex stuff on their case. Might not qualify as, you know, rape or child molestation or anything like that. It could be just, you know, like the previous video, dudes pulling their weenie out on COs and stuff. But after the riot in TI, they kicked all of us out of M Block and spread us all out through the penitentiary. So the dude Skip, he came after the riot and he was to put in M Block. And M Block, he ended up pulling a female staff. You know, I forgot her name, but you know, while he was having the affair with her, you know, a lot of the white dudes was putting pressure on him to get her to bring stuff into the penitentiary. And he was in love with her. So he really didn't want to compromise her. But you know, there's no secrets in the penitentiary. Later on, he ended up getting picked up for that and getting locked up. But at this time, we were getting close to transferring to Victorville. They were closing down Lompoc from a USP and turning it into an FCI. So everybody that had USP points were getting shipped out to Victorville and other prisons. Well, when we went to Victorville, me and him was in the SHU together. You know, they were keeping him in the SHU because they didn't want him to come out because of his situation with the female staff at Lompoc. But eventually, they let him out. And when they let him out, he was in the block where I shared the story of the Sureños killing the little Dave that was a prospect for the NLR. Well, during that case, he ended up testifying on that case because he wanted to go home to the female staff that he had pulled when he was in Lompoc. So, you know, regardless of how we feel about him prior to that, now he's just a rat. And that's why I haven't really shared the story about him with the female staff, because he ended up being a rat. But you know, that being said, you know, he didn't tell on her, but a lot of these dudes that end up compromising these staff and then getting busted, they end up telling on the staff. You know, that's one of the reasons why a lot of staff dudes that maybe want to dip and dab by bringing in contraband for other inmates and stuff. There's a lot of staff that might be willing to go, but they know that through the history, so many times when shit hits the fan, these supposedly gangsters end up telling on the CO. And you know, telling is telling. It doesn't matter if you tell on a CO or another inmate, especially if you're telling on a CO that's hooking you up, that's doing something for you. You know, for me, that's your partner. You guys are in business together and you're supposed to protect each other. You know, I have a friend, Myceli, Omar Spearman, that I've talked about a few times in my videos. His MO throughout his bid last 30+ years, he's been in He's been locked up during the crack era since the early 90s. He's still locked up now in Florence. And all his MO has always been compromising staff. But for him, he's a solid dude. The reason why every yard he goes to, he's always able to get cell phones and dope and all that stuff through these staff is because they see his jacket and they see that every time that they got hemmed up, he never said nothing. He took the beef. I mean, he's got 3 life sentences. So any more time they can give him won't affect him. It won't affect his current situation anyway. But when he got to Florence, that's what all the SIS was on him. Every time they go out, they scrutinize him because they're like, oh, the shit you was doing on other yards, you're not going to be able to do it here. But they never been able to prove anything that he's done because he's never confirmed, he's never admit, and he's never debriefed. And his name in the federal penitentiary is solidified. He's an old head. He's a little bit older than me. He's in his 50s. But from the time he's entered the penitentiary, when you hear about a dude from Detroit, you're always going to hear about Omar. Just because the way he carry himself. And when he does hit and able to get something going, he feeds the compound. He knows how to conduct his business. He knows how to build rapport with people. But him, he's one and few and far in between. We had an incident in Atwater before I left. They had this lady that took over the religious department. And during the time that she was taking over the religious department, she was hooking up dudes that worked as her orderlies or as her clerk or whatever in the religious department. Well, like I said, nothing is ever a secret in the penitentiary. At this time in Atwater, they no longer sell tobacco products. So when a time comes where you see certain people with fresh tobacco, with Taylor rolls and all that stuff, you already know it's coming in from a CO because no one's going out in the visiting room and hooping a pack of cigarettes. The value of it on the compound isn't worth the risk that you're taking. So when tobacco comes on the yard, it's given to you by a CO. And at this time, this dude, he's out of New York. We just call him New York. He was a fat, sloppy black dude. We had a rapport with him as far as because he played on my poker table. And he would come over there when we're sitting down at the table playing and smoke cigarettes with me. And me, I mind my business. I don't inquire about what anybody's got going on. If I have a conversation with you, it's about purchasing something. If not, I don't need to know where it comes from. And the reason I don't want to know where it comes from, mainly because when shit hits the fan, I don't want to be on the suspect list. So you can't say, oh, I told Mesa about this and now I'm hemmed up. So I always make sure that I don't ever ask people about their business, and I keep it that way. And the only reason I know the business now is after the fact when we went to the shoe. When I went to the shoe, right before I left Atwater, being designated to Lewisburg, 3 or 4 dudes came into the shoe. And the word on the unit, on the tier that we were on, was that they had picked up the lady that worked in the religious department with, the accusation, allegedly she was bringing stuff into the penitentiary. Well, that lady, she stayed solid. She didn't testify. She didn't admit to nothing. She told the investigators that came to her, fuck off, and did her part. But this dude from New York, he had just under a year or maybe 2 years left. And they were getting visited by the FBI every week while we were in the shoot. Now, when the FBI comes and investigate something that I've done. I've had a couple of visits from the FBI agents while I was in the penitentiary. They take me out, and within under 1 minute, I'm back out of the room because they take me out first, not knowing what the situation is. But as soon as I go to the door and I see dudes in suits, you know, FBI agent has a smell and a look about them. And especially, you already know what you're in the shoe for already. So you know when they take you out of the cell and take you to a room, and the people in the room is nobody that you recognize as working on the compound, because you know sometimes it's the SIS or it's the lieutenant or medical or for whatever other reasons that you might be pulling out of your cell. But knowing the situation that I'm in, when they pull me out and take me to a room, and I look in the room and I see that these dudes look like feds, I turn around and come back. And they document everything. How long you're out of the room, how long you're in the investigation room. And not only that, people on the tier are able to see how long you left your cell for. So the couple times that I got pulled out and brought into a room where there was FBI agents, I was right back. So I don't have to tell people that I didn't say anything. They know the time period that I left, there was nothing that could be said. It's under 2-3 minutes. Now this dude from New York that I'm talking about, every time they pull him out of the freaking tier to go talk to somebody, he's gone for 20-30 minutes, sometimes longer. But being me, I'm not quick to put a jacket on somebody and accuse them of something. So, and plus, I don't know the situation. I just know that's what's being said on the tier, that they busted 4 dudes and they had this dude allegedly compromising his staff, and one of them was having an affair with this female staff. So fast forward, I end up in Lewisburg, you know, in the Smooth program. Well, while I was in Lewisburg, you know, after I bucked my cellie and got put on a different unit with a Vietnamese dude, after he left, they wouldn't put nobody else in my tier or in my cell. They went back to Atwater, got my homie Easy from Glendale. He wasn't even designated to Lewisburg yet, but now in Lewisburg, there's not a lot of Asian Islander. At the time I was there, it was just me and my cellie and my homeboy Rafe that was in another block, the one that beat up Marquez in Atwater. So I'm sitting in the cell. I've been on 3 weeks without a cellie, unheard of in Lewisburg, because you know, as soon as the room opens, space opens, they're trying to fill that up. But I made it known at that time already that don't bring nobody that's not Asian or Islander in my cell. Because when I first went to Lewisburg, they put me in with a white boy, the dude from GBG, Gay Boy Gangster. You know, me and him plot to separate ourselves from each other. Like, I never had any issue with him. I didn't have an issue with him being gay, and I didn't have any. And as far as like his paperwork and everything checked out. The issue with him was he wasn't. The reason that he wasn't in good standing with the white boys is because he was gay. But you know, he came from a gay gang, so I guess, you know, whatever. You know, I don't care what you do with your life or whatever. For me, if you're not a rat, if you're not a sex offender, and you're not a piece of shit, scumbag, stealing from people and running up bills and all that goofy shit, then I don't have any issue with you as a man. But at the same time, I still follow the politics of the penitentiary, mainly so that I don't have a hard time doing my time. And one of our politics is, you know, they weren't selling that he was X'd out of his community. Not X'd out as being fucked up, but the white boys didn't accept him. So I can't be in a cell with a white boy that is not accepted by the community. I've had white cellies, I've had black cellies, I've had Mexican cellies. You know, I don't have any issue with anybody selling up with me so long as they're good and so long as they don't have any issue with me. So when we separated ourselves, they put me in a cell with a Vietnamese dude. But 3 weeks later, he left the program. He was at the end, at the end of his program. So for about 3 weeks, I was in single cell. And then one day, they brought somebody to my door. I looked out the window, and it's the homie Easy from Atwater. So when they throw him in the cell, he was like, man, I haven't even been designated to Lewisburg. He never went through the review. Like, he was in the shoe for beating up a CO. Forgot his name. I mentioned his name in a prior video, but he was in the shoe penning a case. And for some reason, they just went and picked him up. He didn't even know that he was where he was going. They just picked him up and shipped him to Lewisburg to specifically be my cellie. So from him, because by this time I've already been removed from Atwater about 3 months. So when he came, he told me later that the dude that was from New York that was being pulled out while we were on that tier ended up turning state evidence and telling on everybody that was involved with that CO. And again, I don't want to be redundant, but telling is telling. It don't matter if you're telling on a staff, don't matter if you're telling on an inmate, don't matter if you're telling on dudes out here on the street. Telling is telling. But especially, when you're involved in a situation, you know what you're getting in yourself to. You know the potential repercussion and the potential consequences that comes with your action. And you made a conscious decision to still participate. But now that shit didn't go right, you want to give everybody else up to save your ass. And to individuals like that, I have no respect for. And there's a difference between those people and people in the community that witness a crime and are trying to do the right thing by their community. Yeah, they should still mind their business, but I don't have the level of animosity that I have towards these fucking rats. And again, there's a lot more staff that would be willing to do things for inmates in there, but because of the track record, that every time when shit goes bad, these dudes that they're helping out, these dudes that they're hooking up, they're helping make money, end up telling on them, it puts them off. And I don't blame them. But that's that. Welcome to USP.